But this is a visit which is about anniversaries and memorials. It's about the 250th anniversary of American independence, but it is also a moment when it is 25 years since that atrocity. So yes, it's the right thing to do, and I'm sure the people of New York are very appreciative of it.
Peter, thank you very much for being with us. And it... committing member states to help the United States, and that point being made as Trump raises certain questions about the United States membership of NATO. But this is underway, the King and Queen there in New York. Let's bring in our royal commentator, Alistair Bruce, who is there.
A perfect opportunity for the King and Queen to, as you say, attend the site which was the focus and trigger for so much of the world's response, and NATO's in particular, to the attack on the 11th of September 2001. Very important for the King too, who came as Prince of Wales with the Queen as Duchess of Cornwall to look at this site as it was developing, and also to go to Hanover Square, quite near this part of downtown Manhattan, where he saw the start of the Queen Elizabeth Memorial Gardens. This whole area was surrounded after the attack by messages from families, first of all trying to find whether anyone had survived, and then endless memorial cards, pictures, photographs. The impact on New York was so profound, and still is, and the visit by the King and Queen to recognise not only those who had family involved or were part of the response organisation is an important part of why the King and Queen wanted to come here to New York. It's the engagement that the two of them are doing together. Slightly later start to this third day of the visit, and the Queen will go on to separate engagements from the King later on here in New York. The links to New York for the United Kingdom are very deep. At the end of the Anglo-Dutch Wars, when the first foothold in this area from what had been New Amsterdam, and it became New York, named after James, Duke of York, who was the brother of King Charles II. And he took personal possession of it, and governors were appointed, and of course different governors under a different system now. But the links to the United Kingdom and also to its history are profound in downtown Manhattan. It was here that Battery Park was the focus and strength of the then garrison in New York, and it was from there that trading began, and what is now such a focus for the worldwide financial centre that it is was developed. Manhattan's such a thriving and large world of its own, really. It brings together so many different communities, and for the King and Queen, who will meet consul generals from all the Commonwealth countries who are represented in New York, and because New York is such an important financial centre and home to so many people from different parts of the world, consuls are here to represent, and were working hard after the attack in September 2001. So the King and Queen will get a chance to speak at great length with the governor here, with the governor both of New Jersey and of New York, but also with the mayor of New York, and will shortly go and lay their wreath. They'll be laying their wreath at the site of the foundations of the South Tower. And the South Tower, which is only a short distance from the North Tower. There used to be a hotel in between called the Vista, and all of them were destroyed, of course, in the conflagration that came from the two impacts. The staff with the King and Queen, we've seen Foreign Secretaries there, of course, and Sir Christian Turner there on the right, the ambassador who has been responsible for much of the planning and organisation of this state visit after being appointed quite recently. And representatives of the emergency services from New York who are here too to help make sure that the King is given as clear an understanding of not only the situation as it is for the area that this appalling event took place, but how the memorial itself is being used to advance that memory and to ensure that in due course better lessons are learnt in the world, and that the tremendous loss of life, not least by those British and Commonwealth people who were working in the two towers of the World Trade Center, are remembered. In his speech yesterday, the King took his opportunity in Congress to talk at much length on the importance of the role of the United States of America at the firmament of maintaining freedom and defending against those who would seek to overcome it. And it was perhaps one of the most robust speeches that a sovereign has given since King George V, who was the great-grandfather, as it were, of the modern constitutional monarchy. Certainly, Edward VII was quite outspoken and played his part in trying to establish the Entente Cordiale in 1904, which was so important to the United Kingdom in both its fighting of World War I and World War II. We're looking out now onto Liberty Street in the distance there, and advice being given in order to keep to time by Colonel Johnny Thompson, the King's permanent equerry. But so many people have their own stories, and the King having a chance to hear what they are. Perhaps we can hear the King's conversation.
Yeah, we're not hearing the conversation. But Alistair, I mean, there is this point about 9/11 and NATO, and the point that you said, that talking about the substance of the speech, he did make the point about NATO and how the US benefited from those institutions, NATO and the UN, after 9/11. Clearly a point that the King wanted to make.
The King is clearly following an agenda that is important to His Majesty's government, and he has Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary, with him in order to back that up with diplomatic interaction, but as only the King can, using the extraordinary authority that he holds by dint of being the heir to kings going back through time, and the interest of the President in having the King here. And he's using that opportunity, I think, very robustly to underscore what matters for the United Kingdom while he is on this state visit. There is no doubt that during the King's reign, and particularly more recently, the bonds that have held the United Kingdom close to the United States have been challenged, and that is a matter of great concern to the King for the security of his realm. And as sovereign, as part of the advice of his government too, he has chosen to step forward in a way that perhaps his mother might not have done or wouldn't have needed to. But certainly seeing all these people here who have come to the convening power of the King here in the heart of Manhattan, it is a chance for the King to demonstrate that what happened here and the way the world responded to it is still absolutely pertinent. And it was a thing that the King and Queen asked to do, not least because of the memorial garden nearby, which he came to when it was first considered in 2005 and the late Queen came to in 2010, but to emphasize and to illustrate that what he was underscoring both on the floor of Congress, but also when he was at dinner with the President last night, is key to United Kingdom foreign policy. And as sovereign, it's absolutely key also to the heart of the defence of his realm. Tobin Andre, the King's press secretary there, giving instruction to the cameras. And there the Queen having her chance to get involved. She came in 2005 to discuss the ideas for the memorial too. And, you know, Mark, for the King and Queen, this is focusing, hopefully, for them on this site, what it means and what ultimately it demonstrates of the closeness between the United Kingdom and the United States, particularly when the United States was attacked.
And also, I mean, it's an ideal opportunity to, obviously, for them to be seen out and about and meeting people. And very difficult to be in New York in the 25th year since 9/11 and not do this. But I think probably, would I be right in saying that this is something they really wanted to do?
We witnessed the second state visit of President Trump to the United Kingdom, where he was basically out of reach from any human beings on the street corners or anything like that. His ceremonial arrival, which took him all the way through Windsor Great Park in a carriage, literally just past cows and horses, but the whole route lined by troops in salute of the head of state visiting the King. This is not the British way, and certainly the events that we have seen take place in Washington over the last couple of days were all very curtailed in terms of interaction with the public. And everyone can understand that, particularly after what happened, say, recently, the attack that was made effectively on the President's life and that of his cabinet. But the King and Queen have always existed by interacting with people and being seen to be believed. And for both the expatriate community here in New York, but also those, I can see close to me here, the mayor of New York waiting to have a chat with the King. Of course, he's been quite a controversial figure, but a chance for the King, presumably, to have his first chat with the new mayor in the early stages of his mayoralty. You know, these links are really important, and the face-to-face time matters to the King. He's actually very good at it, and he's a good chatter. And once those eyes, the King's eyes, lock on you, he listens. And he's not one of those people who pulls away too quickly. And in fact, that's half the problem for those people organising his visits, is he does get so terribly involved in the conversations he finds himself enjoying.
Yeah, I see the former mayor of New York there, Michael Bloomberg, and the current mayor right in the foreground there, Zoran Mamdani, a colourful character from the left of politics, so that will be an interesting conversation. But I'm just looking here, Alistair, at what we were saying about NATO and Charles's speech. I've got what he said here. After 9/11, we answered the call together, as our people have done so for more than a century, shoulder to shoulder, he said. So a reference, very clearly part of this effort to underscore the value of the transatlantic alliance at a time when, you know, let's face it, Europeans are having increasing doubts about America's, well, certainly President Trump's commitment. I wonder if we should just have a listen to see if we can hear what the King is saying now. I wonder if we, as he approaches the camera, we might catch a bit of the conversation with the mayor. I mean, in a quiet and commemorative way, this is the King making a point, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And the King there was talking to the governor of New York State, Kathy Hochul, and also the mayor there of, the governor of New Jersey State, Mikey Sherrill, just before speaking to the new mayor of New York. So, you know, those conversations are also very important at this time, and it's a chance for him to meet the significant political figures of both New York State and New Jersey State. But those presentations taking place, and we'll just see if we can hear when the King gets to talk to the new mayor of New York.
Let's go. Right the way back.
And while we're all being pulled away by the King's press secretary, I see leaning in to hear on the right there the King's private secretary, Sir Clive Alderton. He will obviously want to hear the interactions between the King and the principal political people here, because at all times it is his responsibility not only to make sure that the King glides effortlessly in the line most appreciated by His Majesty's government, but also to protect the King in whatever way he needs to in a situation where the King has to be kept out of politics, despite the eminently political emblem that this location and that great and horrific event of 2001 both represent. Once he has met these political leaders, the King and Queen will be moved to the side of where the South Tower stood. It's very overwhelming to see these memorials where basically the foundation is still marked out with these darkened marble walls, and water flows over it down into the chasm at the centre, these deep pools which give a reminder of the horror that must have been faced by those in the upper floors of those two towers. Each of these foundation pools with their cascading water down into the centre, as if to take the memories of those who come, not least the King and Queen today, down into the depths of that recollection and respect. And the King and Queen will lay their wreath of flowers and then go on to meet the representatives of both the Commonwealth and United Kingdom communities who still live here and still look after things like, not least, the
Go right the way back past the next group.
We're always getting our instructions from Tobin Andre, and well done the camera for keeping a steady shot despite this. And it must probably be quite a challenge for the team to keep both the images captured, but also room for the King and Queen to do what it is that they need now to go and do. We just see out of the side of our image to the right the black marble of the edge of that South Tower memorial. And there's a huge building here for the people who have gathered to come and visit the museum, to exactly what happened and how it's being maintained, and everything that's taking place to make sure that this area is commemorated and remembered in the right way. Some of the representatives here from the firefighters of the day who have come to meet the King and Queen and their families, people who came or were at the scene on the day when the two aircraft struck another aircraft, of course, hit the Pentagon, and a fourth aircraft crashed into the ground due to the courageous acts of those who were on board, who realized that they were at the heart of a terrible story that was unfolding. He's coming now to the rector of St. Thomas, Fifth Avenue. It's the great Episcopalian church in New York. I've just seen him to the left of our shot. There he is. The rector, Canon Carl Turner. He is the incumbent of the church where, carved into the pillar on Fifth Avenue, are the words of the King's mother, Elizabeth II, that grief is the price we pay for love. Grief is the price we pay for love. It was a profound statement that the Queen released to mark the horror of that time and could be shared by and understood by all those who were affected. That church is perhaps one of the most English churches in the world. It is cathedral-like and a centre for the Episcopalian Church in New York. So all representatives of the British community and also of those communities who were involved in the drama itself, and also with the emergency services and representatives too. Now, there's obviously a great import to those green badges that are being worn by the people being presented to the King at the moment. For the King and Queen, this visit has obviously been an important thing to prepare for. They have achieved the first great state day, as it were, with the state arrival, with the immense privilege of addressing both houses of Congress in the House of Representatives yesterday. He was the 133rd person given that privilege since the start of the history of the United States as a republic. But also the state banquet in the evening, and I think for the King and Queen, this slightly later start, we're now at nearly 1:30 in the afternoon, and it's a short journey from Washington up to New York. And so it'll be a slightly shorter day for them today. We're seeing off to the left there, Greenwich Street, for those that know downtown Manhattan. And the people with the red badges now, who represent different parts of the gathering here for this memorial. And the King, I think, probably recognises quite a lot of them because of his visits over time. And it's not far from here, in fact, just the other side of those fingers. We're looking from a different angle now. I was going to say we're not far away from Hanover Square. It's not surprising, too, that there's a square here named after the first King George, who was sovereign at the time that this was a British colony. And so the square was named after the Hanoverian family. But this is going to take its time as the King and Queen give, as they always do, as much attention as they can to those who have gathered. And I can see members of the household are talking to those to the left and right of the King to make the most of this visit. But it's an overwhelming sight. And to see these two very large memorial foundations of the two towers. There's no recollection specifically to the Vista Hotel that sat in between, but it too was completely crushed. I went to the site quite soon after the terrible events, and I had used to work out in New York in a previous job, and the building I used to work in, you could see the scars of the cascading masonry and concrete and girders had made on the side of a building which was then no longer usable. It too had to be destroyed. I see the rector of St. Thomas, Fifth Avenue, talking to the Queen.
Yeah, Alistair, I mean, I went out as well to report on that, and the scene of the rubble just enormous quantities of rubble and the dust that was still there. We got there sometime after it happened, but just the coating of dust, it was like a cloud that didn't lift for a long while, and just the mounds of rubble and the grief that just permeated that city, I will never forget. Another man who will never forget is Tim Brown, who was a first responder and survivor after 9/11. He was a firefighter, and he is on the line and is at the scene there in New York. And Tim, thank you for talking to us. And just first of all, how important do you think it is that the King and Queen are paying their respects in this way?
Thanks for having me, Mark. I think it's a wonderful day. It reminds me of September 12th, 2001, when the entire world came to our side here to help us, to support us, to grieve with us, and to show the unity that we need to see more of across this world. So the King and the Queen are representative of that here today, nearly 25 years later, telling us that to this day they still have not forgotten what happened to us here in America.
Yeah, and 25 years on, do you still remember that terrible day like it was yesterday?
I remember it very clearly. I am out there speaking about it because we promised to never forget, and that's exactly what we need. If we forget what happened, who did it and why they did it, then we're leaving ourselves open to that happening again. But today, I think we're more focused on the unity, the partnership between the UK and America, and specifically New York City. I think we lost, or you lost, I guess, around 67 UK, I think, citizens here, and that is true across the whole death toll. There were people from over 90 countries. So this was an attack on good people by pure evil. This is New York. We welcome people of different nations, of faiths, of colors here in New York, and we're proud of that. And the good people do figure out how to get along. So welcome, King and Queen, to New York, to the World Trade Center. And thank you for honoring our heroes, from the firefighters, the police officers, paramedics, and others who bravely ran up those stairs on 9/11/01.
Tim, what was your role on that day?
I was a firefighter, but I was detailed to work for Mayor Giuliani, my good friend. And so my office was 7 World Trade Center, so that's where I was when the first plane came in. And I was in the North Tower lobby after that at the command post representing the mayor. And then when the South Tower got hit, I went to the South Tower to open up that command post with Assistant Chief Donald Burns. We saw a lot of horrific things there. And, you know, we have to remember that horrific things were done to innocent people here. I witnessed that right in front of me. And I was on the sidewalk on Liberty Street, just outside the South Tower, when the building collapsed. Wound up in what you guys just called the Vista Hotel. We called it the Marriott Hotel. And that building collapsed around me. I wound up holding onto a steel vertical column as the wind, the 160-mile-an-hour wind, tried to blow me out into the street. And that is when I prayed to God and said, you know, please, not now. And he answered my prayer. And I stayed around, and I have known for the last 25 years that my purpose is to speak and be the voice for my friends who did not get out, who so bravely climbed those stairs after they told me that they would likely not come back. They knew it, and they still did it. And they are incredible heroes that we have to remember. So thank you, UK. Thank you, King and Queen, for visiting us and showing us that the world has not forgotten.
And later this year, how will you and other first responders and people who were with you that day and survived, how will you be commemorating this awful event?
Right, as we do every year, we will do it together as a grieving family, the fire department family, and all the others. You know, we figured out how to do it as a group. We've figured out how to survive it. It's very difficult. This time, for the 25th anniversary, I wrote a book called The Greatest Love, and so that book will be launching right before the 25th anniversary. So that's going to keep me busy talking about that. And truly, The Greatest Love, I named the book that because that's what each firefighter and police officer did that day. At the end of their lives, they each performed individual acts of the greatest love for people they didn't even know. They were willing to give their lives because people needed their help, and they gave their own lives to save, some say, up to 50,000 innocent office workers who were just in the building that day.
Yeah, we're just waiting for the King and Queen to move forward and lay the wreath. So we'll keep an eye on that, Tim. And just while you're there, talk to me, if you can, about there is this ongoing human cost, isn't there, of people still dying as a result of what happened.
Absolutely, and thanks for that question. The fire department has now lost over 450 firefighters from 9/11 illness. I personally am sick with cancer. Basically, if you were there that day or you were working on the pile afterwards, the numbers aren't 100%, but they're getting close to that, that everyone, you know, is sick one way or the other. I've had excellent health care. I'm very blessed, and I'm very grateful that my prognosis is good.
Okay, well, Tim, we really appreciate you coming on and talking about...
Thank you, Mark.
No, not at all. And we're seeing pictures. Tim, thank you very much indeed. We're just seeing pictures from a few moments ago, actually, when the King and the Queen laid the wreath. We think that they've now gone into the museum to have a look around there. Let's go to our royal correspondent, Laura Bundock, who is right there in New York. And, well, just a very poignant part of this visit, Laura.
Yeah, it certainly was. The arriving here in New York and coming to perhaps what is a very somber, a very, as you say, poignant memorial here. And I think anyone who has been here, anyone who comes here, it is quite arresting when you arrive to see these giant pools where once stood the Twin Towers. And I think as the first visit they've both made here, the King and Queen certainly had that moment. They walked to the edge behind me and then laid their wreath of flowers and then just took a moment to pause and to remember. And of course, amongst the nearly 3,000 who died, there were plenty of those from not just Britain, but from across the Commonwealth. And they couple then spent a considerable, I would say, amount of time speaking to some of the families of those who died, including families and representatives from different Commonwealth realms, and speaking to survivors. And we heard there, you know, just how much it means to be remembered in this year, which will be the 25th anniversary of those attacks, and also speaking to the first responders who were such an integral, such an important part of that day nearly 25 years ago. So a very moving start, I think, for them both coming here to this memorial. They're now spending some time in the Queen's Memorial Garden before heading off to other engagements. This day in New York is pretty busy for them, and I think a welcome break from perhaps the the trickier politics of Washington and the last couple of days. We will see them head off from here, go their separate ways before coming together for an event that will celebrate, among other things, the King's trust in America. But yeah, I think today you could see on their faces this was a moment of reflection, of remembrance, and a chance, as I say, to meet some of the families, some of the survivors of the thousands of people who died here in 2001.
Yeah, Laura, I don't know whether you heard it, but we were just talking actually to a first responder and survivor who was in one of the buildings, and he was very emotional about what it meant to the people of New York and the people involved in that day, people closely involved in that day. And he was just talking about how grateful they were that the King and Queen would take time out to do this.
Yeah, I think when he said to you, we never forget, and I think that's what struck me, wasn't it? And I think having, a head of state like the King come here, it is a real moment in that sense of never forgetting and always remembering. But again, not just the remembering side of things, but the unity that has come from an event like 9/11, and the King certainly hearing more about, and he was here, some of the educational work that's being done. I think that's what he's learning about right now as I speak, in terms of educating a younger generation as to how this happened, and if any, what positive lessons can be learned from, as I say, that sense of unity which the firefighter you were speaking to earlier touched upon. But this is a big moment for the King and Queen. You can't really imagine them coming to New York and not coming somewhere like this. Like I said, they've not been to this memorial before, and for people who haven't been here, it is a very, very striking sight. It is quite arresting, and I think the look on their faces when they stood there laying that wreath of flowers, it was clear the impact it was having on them as well. And we are now halfway through this pretty busy state visit to America, having had those 2 days in Washington, a whole day here in New York, before tomorrow heading to Virginia for another fairly busy day as well. And this feels much more like the traditional the side of the state visit, doesn't it? Plenty of engagements planned around themes and issues close to the couple's heart.
And just before you go, Laura, as you say, halfway through, and what is the feeling of palace officials, that it's all going pretty well?
Well, of course, speak to the palace and they will put the most positive spin on this state visit. Look, I don't think we can downplay the significance of this visit coming at such a sort of turbulent time when it comes to US-UK relations. That the King played his part, speaking in Congress, talking about the strong alliance, the historic links, and I think coming from someone like the King with such a personal connection, obviously, to the British monarchy, it hit home, and those 12 standing ovations, weren't paying lip service to what he was saying. I think his words were very much appreciated in Congress. It was always going to be difficult, though. I think, there were huge risks speaking to former ambassadors to the US. They said, look, it was a very difficult time to come. Lots of people question the timing and whether or not it was appropriate at this particular moment with conflict in Iran, a conflict that the UK doesn't support, whether it could be hard. But I think what we got a sense from Trump for most of yesterday, at the very least, was his very, very deep admiration for the royal family. And you did get a sense that if anyone can help heal that relationship, then maybe it might be the King at that point. So, I mean, Trump sort of had a smile on his face all day at the White House with that huge ceremonial welcome. The King and Trump will meet again tomorrow for the official goodbye ceremony as well, and that's it. And I'm sure there will be perhaps a sigh of relief from the palace when they sort of end this part of the King's visit overseas, because it's not been without its challenges. Yesterday at state dinner, when Trump talked about the King agreeing with him that Iran shouldn't have nuclear weapons, it wasn't as bad as we've heard Trump say before, but it was embarrassing getting the King involved in politics, given his constitutional role as someone who has to sit above the politics of the day. So I think Trump releasing anything the King might have said to him was not what the palace had hoped for. But anyway, like I say, the day in New York, and at this particular moment, a very poignant start to the day, certainly.
Laura, thank you very much indeed. Let's just get a final thought from our royal commentator, Alistair Bruce, on not only the poignant ceremony we've just seen, with the laying of the wreath and so forth, but also just your thoughts on the visit so far.
Well, I think the visit has been a magnificent success in terms of trying to support the United Kingdom's interests at a pretty challenging time, using the skills that the King brings by being himself. And when he stepped forward here to lay the wreath and to recognise what happened 25 years ago that triggered so much, not least the first response of Article 5 by NATO, which is still such an important element of British life, I think that the King played his part and emphasised the importance that this visit is for the nation. And on his wreath of flowers was written, "We honour the memory for those who so tragically lost their lives on the 11th of September 2001. We stand in enduring solidarity with the American people and in the face of their profound loss." Words that the King so naturally delivers, much as he delivered the two speeches yesterday. This has been a visit where the King has used his skill as a communicator to link to the shared history between the United Kingdom and the United States, and taking advantage of the President's fascination in his kingship.